AITAH for not planning anything for Father's Day after my husband ruined my first Mother's Day. Posted by you/counter necessary 2597. I'm 98.7% sure that I am not the jerk here, but if I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it and learn from my mistakes. Our little boy will be one later this summer, so this was the first Mother's Day and Father's Day for both me and my husband. My husband asked what I wanted for Mother's Day. I didn't want or need anything big or expensive. What I asked for was, for my husband to get up with the little guy and get him fed while I pumped and relaxed. Breakfast in bed, just toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee. For us to take the little guy to the zoo for the first time, this was the main thing I was looking forward to. Go to my favorite taco place for dinner. Between morning and afternoon naps, we have about 4 hours of awake time. The zoo is about 30 minutes away, so I figured if we left as soon as he got up from his nap and ate, we would have a couple of hours at the zoo, and worst case, he could sleep in the car on the way home. We took my mom and my mother-in-law out to brunch the prior weekend to celebrate them, his mom on Saturday and my mom on Sunday. I also got them each a thoughtful little present and flowers to celebrate their first Mother's Day as grandparents. I arranged everything and told my mom and mother-in-law that we would be celebrating on the actual day with just our little family. I sent them a group chat, which included my husband, my dad, and father-in-law, just to make sure everyone was on the same page. My mother-in-law is very pushy and overbearing, so I didn't want there to be any surprises or confusion. The Saturday before Mother's Day, my father-in-law sent my husband a text with a picture of all the mulch he just had delivered and said something like, "Gonna be a busy weekend." Apparently, he had 300 bags of mulch. They have a big yard with lots of flower beds. That night, my mother-in-law called my husband and asked him to come over first thing in the morning to help his dad move the bags of mulch to where they were going to be used. She said since we weren't going to the zoo until after the little guy's nap, my husband could go over and help for a couple of hours and then come pick us up to go to the zoo. I was obviously not happy, but she guilted him and said my father-in-law was going to end up hurting himself if he moved all that by himself, and that it wasn't a big deal and should only take an hour or two. I told him his mom was doing this to try and get us to skip our plans and spend the day with them, but he kept saying it's not a big deal, that his mom promised it would only take a couple of hours, etc. I think most people know what happened. My husband went over first thing, which meant no breakfast in bed, and I had to get up to feed the little guy. I was kinda pissed, but whatever. I spent time with the little guy, then when he went down for his morning nap, I texted my husband to let him know he should start wrapping things up. Then when the little guy woke up 2 hours later, I called my husband to tell him I would be ready to go as soon as I finished feeding the little guy. He told me it was taking longer than he expected, but that he would hurry. About an hour and a half later, my husband called and said they weren't done but he was getting ready to come home. It is a 15 to 20 minute drive from my mother-in-law and father-in-law's house. At that point, we had missed the window to make it to the zoo, so I told him to just stay there and finish and not worry about Mother's Day since he hadn't done a single thing I asked for. I don't think there was any doubt in his mind how pissed I was. A little later, his mom called and said that since we decided not to go to the zoo, me and the little guy should go hang out with her while the boys finished with the mulch. I admit that I was pretty pissy and told her I had no interest in spending time with the people who decided to ruin my first Mother's Day. I ended up staying home, ordering a pizza, and binging Netflix. When my husband got home, he was all apologetic and asked how he could make it up to me. I was still pissed and told him he could make it up by not ruining my first Mother's Day. I also told him he should plan on spending Father's Day with his mom and dad because me and the little guy were going to go celebrate Father's Day with my mom and dad. Since Mother's Day, my mother-in-law has been texting and calling, but I've been keeping conversations short and just giving very bland, generic responses. My husband has been apologizing and asking what he can do, but honestly, I don't want to bother. I know it's just a day and we can celebrate any time, like we did with my mom and my mother-in-law. But it was my first ever Mother's Day. And it's not like I asked for anything expensive or difficult. The only difficult thing is he's incapable of setting boundaries with his mom. And she's incapable of considering anyone's feelings but her own. This past Saturday, he asked if I was still going to my parents', then said he would like to go with us. I told him he could do whatever he wanted, but since I hadn't done anything for his dad, he might want to go see him or something. We did both end up going to my parents and spending the day with them. It was actually a nice day. My dad insisted on grilling because of course he did, but the weather ended up being nice and we spent a lot of time hanging out on their deck playing with the little guy. I'm not sure what, if anything, my husband did for his dad. I know he was getting a lot of texts during the day. I assume from his mom. She did send me a snippy text saying it was hurtful to spend the day with my family at the expense of my husband's, but I told her she got to spend Mother's Day with her baby boy, So it's only fair that I spend Father's Day with my family. I know my husband was hurt that we didn't acknowledge him for Father's Day, but I told him while we were driving to my parents' house that I'm just matching his energy. I admit that I haven't done anything to de-escalate the drama, but I'm still just so hurt that he continues to prioritize his mom's feelings over our little family. This isn't the first time his mom has done crap like this, and I'm just so tired of it. She always oversteps and insists on doing what she wants. I'm doing better at keeping her at arm's length and holding my own boundaries, but my husband is absolutely incapable of it. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Not the jerk. Look at the shiny spine on you. Your husband should take notes. You're a badass, and I wish I had your spunk. Ask him why he'd rather be a good son than a good father. When is his child going to matter more than his mommy's feelings? I'm proud you're not letting her get away with her crap. What about Christmas? Birthdays? Ops response. So far, it's been a lot of the same. Technically, we've tried to alternate holidays or celebrate with one of our families on a different day, but his mom calls and texts nonstop if we spend a holiday with my family. I already told him that this Christmas we are spending Christmas Day at home, just the three of us. That should be interesting to see what tricks my mother-in-law pulls out. Commenter 2. What can I do to fix this? How about getting the F off your lazy bum and figuring it out yourself? Asking would just make me more pissed off. Ops response. Honestly, I think that's part of the reason I'm still so upset and hurt. Good grief, just try something. Even just trying would earn points, even if it's something silly. Commenter 3. Not the jerk. Although, you knew your husband wasn't going to make it by the time your son woke up. Why didn't you just take your son and enjoy the zoo? Ops response. I really should have. I think I was trying to convince myself he'd come through for us. Lesson learned. Downvoted commenter 4. I'm probably in the minority here, but you're the jerk. Did ruining his day make you feel any better? No? Probably because that's not how these things work. Grow up. Communicate. Work on your problems as a couple, or before you know it, your child will be splitting his time and holidays between two households, too. Did you deserve better? Absolutely. But so did he. The difference is you intentionally ruined his, while he mistakenly, not accidentally, he chose to go over to his mom's, ruined yours. And you're right, you can celebrate either day at any time. Maybe you should sit down and agree to a redo, and have a longer conversation about boundaries and what expectations are for both of you going forward. If you love him, don't lose him by playing childish games. And all of this applies to him too. He needs better boundaries. He knew the plan, yet he decided to listen to his mother instead. He needs to acknowledge his mistake and learn from it. He didn't marry mommy. He married you. Ops response. Uck. You're not wrong. I think this was just the last one in a long line of this kind of behavior, and it really pushed me over the edge because it was so important to me. I did want him to have an idea of how he made me feel. I think it impressed upon him how hurt I was. But you're right, this isn't sustainable. I feel like we both did some serious damage to our marriage, and we need to figure out how to fix it. Update 1 week later. I posted here last week. You can find it in my profile if you want the backstory. I wanted to thank everyone. I've had a lot of people asking for an update, so here we go. This weekend, my husband and I sat down and talked about everything. I expressed to him how incredibly upset and disappointed I was at how both Mother's Day and Father's Day went down. I really wanted to recognize and celebrate my husband for Father's Day every bit as much as I hoped he would recognize and celebrate me for Mother's Day. He said he knew he shouldn't have gone to his parents on Mother's Day but didn't know what to do since his mom was pressuring him and saying if his dad got hurt, it would be his fault. He admitted that he knew he messed up and has been terrified that I was going to ask for a divorce. Since he cut to the chase, I told him that if this is how our life is going to be, I don't want to stay married to him. I explained to him that I realized that while, yes, I was upset about what happened on Mother's Day, that isn't what is making me feel this way. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. This kind of behavior from his mom has been happening since before we got engaged and has just escalated. This has been happening for years. As someone here suggested, I had listed all the times and events that I could remember that she had overstepped or just completely ruined. For our freaking honeymoon, she called him twice a day. Every morning to find out our plans for the day and then every evening to hear how the day went. Plus the constant texting, asking for pictures, telling him how much she missed him. I don't know how I thought this was acceptable. She tried to make our wedding about herself, tried to make my pregnancy about herself, tried to take over when we brought our son home, just constantly inserting herself and overstepping. I told him that I don't really want to get divorced right now, but if it's going to happen anyway, I'd rather get divorced now while we can still do it amicably. Because if nothing changes, I'm going to end up so angry and resentful that it would make divorce very contentious, and I don't want that for our son. At this point, we were both crying, upset, and emotional. So I told him that I'll give him some time to decide what he's going to do, but if I don't see clear effort being made to start prioritizing me and our son, then I'd move forward with the divorce. And the change has to continue. Every time we fought about this in the past, he's promised he'll change, and sometimes he has, but then his mom pulls him back into her orbit. If we are to stay married, these are some of the things I'm insisting on, in no particular order. We each own the relationship with our own parents. That means I'm not planning anything for his parents anymore. No cards, no presents, no brunches or parties, no pictures, nothing. If his parents reach out to me, I'm going to redirect them to him. I'm not entertaining or visiting with his parents when he's not around. I'm not taking our son over to theirs by myself. And if they drop by, I'm not inviting them in unless my husband is there. I'm not changing my plans at the last minute just because they decided to drop by without coordinating with us in advance or because they want us to do something with them. Neither of us makes plans with our parents or accepts invitations until we discuss it with our partner. And if we don't both agree, then we don't do it. And we don't throw each other under the bus. We just say something like, "We checked our schedule, and we're not available." Holidays like Christmas, Halloween, Easter, etc. are at our house. We can discuss inviting our parents, but we're not going to someone else's house to celebrate something involving our son when we can do it at home. This includes his first birthday, which his mother is trying to take over and plan. For other holidays, we alternate between our parents. And we will focus on being present. That means no more texting or talking to his mom nonstop when we're with my parents. No more oversharing with his mother. She doesn't need to know about our finances, health or medical issues, vacation plans, or anything unless we both agree it's something we want to share. His visits to his parents can't be at the expense of spending quality time with me and our son. I don't mind him visiting his parents, but he's over there a couple of times a week. We are his immediate family now. We should get priority. We're not doing things just because she said we should. And we're not changing our plans just because she doesn't like them. She really doesn't understand that wrong and different are not the same thing. In her mind, if we're not doing what she wants, how she wants, then we are in the wrong. He needs to go to therapy with someone specializing in enmeshment. And we need to start going to couples therapy. I didn't even realize I have so much pent-up resentment that I can't look at my husband the same anymore. I'm just angry at him all the time, and I hate being this way. When it comes to our son, our word, husband and me, is law. If she disregards or minimizes our decisions for our son, then she loses access until she learns to behave. When me or my husband say no to either set of parents, the other person will support them and back them up. That means my husband has to stop trying to get me to agree with his mom all the time. I can tell he's freaked out and really stressed about the idea of putting hard boundaries in place or distancing from his parents. And I do feel for him. He said he feels like he's caught between a rock and a hard place and that me and his mom are both putting a ton of pressure on him and both have conflicting expectations. And that's fine. He just needs to understand that I'm not tolerating this anymore. I know this will cause an absolute crapstorm with his parents, but I feel like if we don't do it now, it'll just be harder down the road. What does everyone think? Am I being unreasonable? Are there other boundaries we should put in place? /relevant comments. Commenter. I think all of the boundaries are very good. She kept calling on your freaking honeymoon? Who the hell does that? And that he accepted the calls, unbelievable. I'm surprised she didn't show up. He doesn't need to go over to his parents twice a week, that's too much. Put the kibosh on that. He has a freaking family. I'm concerned he said he feels between a rock and a hard place, that's not a good sign. I'm also concerned he won't be able to stand up to his mother. His mother is a master manipulator, and I bet she's the type who thinks no woman is good enough for her baby. I hope it works out, but your boundaries are great. Ops response. And I'll be honest, what really pisses me off now is that I didn't make a bigger deal. It pissed me off, and I told him it pissed me off, but I never followed through. I just let him say things like she's excited for us or she misses us, and the next time she called, I'd roll my eyes and say something passive-aggressive. Then, when they hung up, we'd carry on with what we were doing. I should have been more explicit that I didn't think it was acceptable. I'm not saying I expected no contact. I texted my parents when we landed at our destination and then again when we were on the plane to go home. But that was it. And their only response was have fun and have a safe flight, can't wait to see you. And I see my folks probably every 2 to 3 weeks, and they live about the same distance as his parents. So I don't have a problem with him going to visit. But that often? Really? Commenter 2. He said he feels like he's caught between a rock and a hard place, and that his mom and I are both putting a ton of pressure on him and have conflicting expectations. He'll never stand up for you. You're just wasting your time. He's watched you be mistreated and belittled by his mother for years while he stood by and did nothing. He was perfectly fine with that continuing. But now that you're asking for less than the bare minimum, it's too hard for him. If you think this is love, you're so wrong. If he loved you, he wouldn't be able to stand watching you sad and hurt because of his mother. But he's perfectly comfortable with that. What he's uncomfortable with is standing up for you. My husband is a non-confrontational person. He's extremely protective of me when it comes to family. His mom tried to say something questionable once, he shut it down, and she never dared to do that again. You're fooling yourself right now. This isn't about his nature. This is about the fact that he doesn't love you. If he did, he wouldn't be able to happily watch you suffer for years. Wake up and face facts. He's never going to change. He'll probably pretend to change to reel you back in, but after that, he'll go back to the usual. Stop wasting your time. Ops response. I really hope you are wrong, but I'll be honest, late at night this is my concern. I would never allow my parents to act or treat him the way his do with me. If we do get divorced, at least I'll be able to say I tried my best and gave him every opportunity. Commenter 3. My advice to you is to start calling it out and explaining it in the moment. She calls and he jumps to take her call, name, this is our time together, and you are once again prioritizing your mom over us. He divulges private information, name, would you like me going and spreading private information to my family about you? Because what you are telling your mom is private. Adults keep that information within the confines of marriage, just like sex. You need to find a couples therapist and set up the appointment ASAP. Tell him the date and time, and tell him that if he is serious about saving the marriage, you expect him to be there and to show up weekly. Lay it all out for the therapist. Ops response. Thank you for this advice. I've always hesitated to do this because I didn't want to come off as a nagging wife, but I realize now I was just enabling the status quo. You are right, we need to have some way of providing feedback to one another and being able to communicate in an open and healthy manner, even if the underlying topic is toxic. Downvoted commenter 4. So you dictated all the rules to him without allowing him to discuss or participate. It's either got to be exactly your way, or you will divorce him, and it will be all his fault. Who does that sound like? You are setting him up for failure, asking him to make multiple major changes all at once, and if he fails one of them, you will leave him. I bet you won't recognize any progress until he is perfect either. Plus, what happens when you really want to go to your parents' house and he says no, or your parents call while you are at his parents' house and you go ahead and talk to them anyway? I can hear the response now, well, my parents aren't the problem. That's as may be, but if you are going to dictate rules, you had better be just as judicious in following them as you expect him to be. I'm also guessing that you pretty much think couples counseling will be about what a big jerk he is, without any thought that you will be required to be just as soul-searching about yourself as you expect him to be. You have set expectations so high that Jesus himself could not meet them. You might as well divorce him now, because that is exactly where you are going if you don't start talking with him instead of talking to him. In case you missed my reference earlier, your rules sound exactly like the thing his mother would come up with. That's not surprising, because so many men marry their mothers. Bring on the downvotes, lol. Ops response. It seems like you are making a lot of assumptions about me here, but it is Reddit, so that's totally fair and expected. To answer your question, my rules have to apply equally to both of us. And I'm curious why you think they are so onerous. Like, is it too much to expect that we won't cancel our plans because my mother-in-law wants my husband to come over for some chore that can be done later? Or that we don't cancel trips because my mother-in-law thinks it's too expensive? Or that we check with each other before accepting an invite? If someone invites us to an event, regardless of whether it's my parents or a friend or whoever, I always check with my husband to see if 1, he wants to go and 2, if he has any plans that would conflict. I really struggle to see why that is so extreme. And no, I don't take my parents' calls when we're out with other people, be it his family, friends, or just us. If it's really important, they'll text and let me know. And I already tell my parents we're busy if they want to come over and either my husband or I aren't up for a visit. This all seems like common courtesy and respect to me. I've said multiple times that I know any change is going to take time and that I know it's not going to be linear. I'm not worried about him slipping or making mistakes. I know he will. And so will I. I'm more interested in whether he tries to prioritize our marriage and our family. And if there are things I've done that bother him, knowing myself, I don't know how there wouldn't be. I want to know so I can try to be better for him. This only works if we're both happy and content. And that sure as hell won't happen if he just swaps out his mom for me. That's not the kind of relationship I want, and hopefully not the kind of relationship he wants. Second update 2 months, 2 weeks later. I've had a lot of folks asking for an update, so here goes. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my earlier posts, good and bad, it has been so helpful. A couple of things I want to mention first. A lot of commenters have been saying that I knew what I was getting into when I married my husband, so this whole thing is as much my fault as anyone else's, and if I didn't want a mama's boy, I shouldn't have married one. Yep, you are 100% correct. I ignored all the red flags, constantly told myself it would get better once we were engaged, then once we were married, then once we got pregnant, then once we had kids. And I think part of the issue is his mother has gotten worse over the years. It feels like one of those frog in a pot of boiling water situations. I don't deny I put myself into this situation, but the fact is we're here now, so we need to get it figured out. A lot of other commenters said my list of rules was crazy and that I'm just as bad as his mom. Maybe I am, more on that later, but I don't think there is anything about my boundaries that is unreasonable, and there is nothing I expect from him and his parents that I don't also expect from myself and my parents. I've said repeatedly, they all boil down to the same basic thing, showing each other respect and consideration. I'm not saying he can't see his parents or that they can't come visit or anything like that. I'm saying that his parents don't get to have priority over us and our little family, and neither do my parents. First, the good. My husband ended up surprising me with a trip out of town. He took me and our son down to San Antonio for a long weekend. We had been pre-kid and really enjoyed staying on the Riverwalk and doing all the touristy stuff, even though we only live a few hours away. My husband ended up really stressed and kept apologizing because obviously, this trip was much different. It felt more like a military expedition with all the gear we took for our son, and it wasn't nearly as romantic since we had a pack and play next to the bed. But I kept reminding him that what was important, to me at least, was that he took the initiative to plan something on his own and try to make up for Mother's Day. Even though it wasn't exactly what he was hoping for, I had a really, really good time and enjoyed spending time with my two guys, and I expressed that to him. And to his credit, my husband didn't answer when his mom called or spend all day texting her. I know he paid for it when we got back because I heard them on the phone, and it sounded like she was reading him the riot act for not telling them we were going, not inviting them along, and not answering when she called. I'm going to do something for him as a belated Father's Day, and we're going to try to build different, better memories of our first Mother's Day and Father's Day, even if it's after the fact. More good stuff. My husband and I both have individual therapists we've been seeing weekly for the past several weeks, as well as a couples therapist we've been seeing weekly together. And I'm going back to work full-time next week, so our son has been going to daycare part-time to help him acclimate. The first day was pretty traumatic, more for me than for him. But he's been adjusting well and seems happy when I pick him up after lunch. This is a huge point of contention with my mother-in-law because she wants to babysit, but I've said absolutely not because she won't respect any of our rules or boundaries. I've also been following through on my list of boundaries from my last post. I'm not no contact, but I guess the term is I've dropped the rope. Now the bad. For our son's first birthday, I was planning something small and casual at our house. Just our parents and a few close friends. Like 10 to 15 people max, counting me and my husband. I was going to make a smash cake for our son and more grown-up type food, snacks, and dessert for us and the guests. I was planning some low-key decorations because, let's be honest, this kind of party is for the adults. Our son isn't going to remember any of it, so I didn't want to go overboard. My mother-in-law hated everything about it and wanted to do it at her house, invite all her friends and relatives, serve more kid-centric food, get a store-bought cake with all that super sweet icing, and go nuts with decorations. I told her, no, absolutely not. Our kid, our house, our plans. She went crying to my husband, and he tried to talk me into letting her have her way. This has been a constant theme. My mother-in-law oversteps, I complain, my husband puts up boundaries, and then just as quickly, he forgets about the boundaries. We were able to talk about this in one of our early couples sessions, and it was pretty enlightening. I'm sure all the people saying my husband just ended up marrying someone just like his mom will be gratified to know our counselor said, Op can have a forceful personality. So yeah, I'm bossy, pushy, opinionated, etc. How it came up is we were talking about the party, and I was saying what I wanted to do and why I didn't want to let my mother-in-law take over, etc., and my husband was trying to explain why we should accommodate her. The therapist interrupted us and asked my husband what he wanted to do. He started talking about my plan versus his mom's plan, and the therapist stopped him and asked again what he wants. Based on his reaction, I don't think anyone has ever seriously asked him that. He had a complete deer in the headlights look, and I really thought he was going to bolt or start crying or both. How we ended it is, if he truly doesn't have an opinion or doesn't care, then he should probably defer to his wife's, approach. He shouldn't delegate his right to decide to his mom. If he really wants to do it her way, then he needs to express that and say he wants to do it her way because he really wants to, as opposed to doing it her way just to avoid upsetting her. Or if he wants something completely different, he needs to express that. But his mom's opinion is not and cannot take precedence. There's nothing wrong with her expressing her opinion and him agreeing, but that needs to be an active process, as opposed to him just doing something because she said so. That was followed up by a conversation about how I have strong thoughts and opinions, and I need to give him room to have his own. So rather than saying, I want to do X and then expecting him to agree or disagree, I need to say something like, for our son's birthday, I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear what you think first so we can decide together. We did end up doing the party the way I wanted because my husband took the therapist's advice and deferred to me since he didn't have an opinion. My mother-in-law was super pissy about the whole thing and ended up bringing a sheet cake despite me telling her multiple times not to. We didn't serve it during the party, because boundaries, which pissed her off. My husband and I have been munching on it as a late-night snack after putting our son to bed, and because of how insanely sweet the icing is, I'm glad I stuck to my guns. I feel better because I've put distance between myself and my mother-in-law, and I'm not worrying about pissing her off, so I'm not walking on eggshells anymore. But I don't know if I'm any more confident about whether our marriage will survive. I'm realizing that my husband has deferred to other people, his mother and me, for so long, he has a hard time having his own thoughts and opinions. I do still love him very much, and I'm not as mad as I was when I first posted. Now I'm more sad for him, and I'm starting to understand him better. But I don't know if he can change. I know she is complaining to him because I haven't been kowtowing to her, and I haven't been visiting on my own or changing plans when they drop by unexpectedly, but I'm not pushing him to establish his own boundaries yet. I think he needs to do more work so he can decide what he wants out of all this. All that to say, we're still working through it, and I don't know what's going to happen. /relevant comments. Commenter. It sounds like he has some wonderful growth opportunities ahead. With you supporting his forays into the world of opinions, and with your mother-in-law kept at a safe distance, I have hope that he can find out what he wants.